Oh, is that it? Oh, okay. Oh. Dobra večer. Govorite angliski? Okay, good. Hi, I'm Jeremie Zimmermann. I'm the co-founder of La Quadrature du Net, citizen organization defending fundamental rights online. We try to kick some ass on issues ranging from copyright to censorship to net neutrality and the such. But I want to speak to you about something a bit special here, because this place is quite special. For these days, we've been sharing knowledge, we've been sharing thoughts, we've been sharing food, we've been sharing this nice weather, this incredible landscape, this boat, the music, the party, the vibes, the dancing, and it's a kind of full experience in sharing everything there is to share under the sun. And I think this is how you manage to collectively get together in order to share strategic insights, to share means of action, and in the end to share energy to try to change the world. And this is what we are doing together. I want to tell you not about TAFTA, the Transatlantic Free Trade Agreement, which is like a super ACTA. It's a US-EU trade agreement. It will be about pretty much everything from finance to access to health, to food safety, to the internet, obviously. Copyright and the such is one of the biggest motherfucker we'll have to kick in the next years. But I'm not going to talk about this. I'm not going to talk about the data protection regulation happening at in Brussels right now, because this is also a very crucial legislative issue. But come on, we're beyond that. We're the share people. We're the Cyberpunk Academy. We do not care of what will be happening in the next month in Brussels. We care about changing the world. And I have the very strange and sad impression that things are happening that fast, that we hackers, geeks, don't even fully comprehend it today. And it is about a relationship to technology. And I want to open here a reflection about that. I don't know about you, but I grew up with one of those 8-bit computers. Nadim yesterday told us how his 50K modem was his window to the world and helped him turn into the person he is today, made him the person he is today, made him this fantastic person who is open to the world and who is so much one of us. His story is our story. Before I had my first modem, I had this Amstrad CPC computer. Maybe some of you had one too. Maybe some of you had a Commodore 64 or, I don't know, a ZX Spectrum or things like that. Those machines were programmable machines with very simple features, very simple architecture that made it that if you were maybe slightly autistic, patient enough, caring about reading stuff in English, you would get to understand how it worked, from the very outside of the plastic shell to the deepest insights of every chip there was in the box. This technology was simple enough for those 8, 12, 15 years old kids we were at the time to understand how it worked and to master it, to make something out of it. If you look at the history of those machines, and especially the Commodore 64, you'll see that generations of enthusiasts pushed further away the limits of the machine through understanding, through sharing the knowledge of those limitations, to make it work better, to make more sprites displayed on the screen, on a bigger area of the screen, with more colors, with more sounds, and everybody going faster. This is the world I grew up in, where we could understand technology, where we could control it, and we never had to ask ourselves the questions, what are the barriers to that? Because the barriers were in ourselves. And in order to lift those barriers, all we had to do was share knowledge. Then were the BBSs, and we discovered that we could use computer networks, we could use modems, we could use the sending of zeros and ones around the world to better share this knowledge. And it opened a new world to us. And then when TCP/IP, we discovered the internet. this 56K modem Nadine mentioned yesterday. And this was our truly universal window to the world. And it made sharing of knowledge possible not only to our friends, like in the courtyard when we were sharing those Amstrad CPC floppy disks, not only with our small bunch of friends with a local phone number through the BBSs, but literally through the whole of the world. And this is not only how we had more fun with the machines, this is not only how we could express ourselves, but this is also how we learned about everything. Well, I'm mostly acting in a world that is darker than that today. I mean, the institutions in the European Union. Well, I do not want to spoil it too much because you just joined it, so you may still be enthusiastic about it. But it's not so bright from the inside. Well, but we can do something about it, and I'll get to that later. In all those debates I've been part of, from copyright to net neutrality to censorship to privacy to surveillance, the knowledge of technology, indeed on a very much wider scale than understanding how to code assembly on a C64, but the very same knowledge of technology, the understanding of the underlying architecture of our communication infrastructure, has always been the key to go from a very bad policy to a potentially good policy, to making a terrible mistake, to making the right decision. Constantly, we've been going to the policymakers and tell them, the internet doesn't really work like you think it does. No, it's not a series of tubes. You cannot just decide that this website will go away and it will go away because the Streisand and the such. You cannot just cut off internet access in an administrative way with Adobe in France and think you will get away with that. No, you can't. You cannot really let the telcos do whatever they do because they tell you it's new business models and jobs and growth and as such. And so we're here with our tiny means, spreading the word, helping to make citizens understand why it is important that we collectively go and engage with the policymakers whenever they're about to take a decision about the internet. Engage with them and tell them, you're about to make a mistake. We understand how it works. We're willing to explain it to you. We can spend time, speak very slowly and articulate if necessary. But in the end, this is what we do. We explain to them how it works in order to try to ensure they do not break it. We share with them the very same knowledge of technology that we had access to in our young ages in a totally free and unrestricted way. Well, as I told you, things are changing, and the vision of the world evolved for many of us in the recent days with the revelations of Edward Snowden on PRISM. Actually, I should have begun with this, but I really want to share with you a thought for Edward Snowden, Bradley Manning, and Julian Assange that are 3 examples of how individuals with great courage can risk their lives, dedicate some of their lives, take risks that are beyond everything we risked before, for something that we call justice and truth, and at the core of which is this very same notion of sharing of knowledge. So big up to them. Yeah, big up to them. And Aaron Schwartz, and many others, unsung heroes. What we learned with Snowden revelations about PRISM is first of all irrefutable evidence of what the paranoid geeks were saying for some times. This top secret / no foreign seal on documents that weren't opposed by the US administration are evidence we can now brandish in courts, in parliaments, and in streets to claim that what we say is true. And this is something important. But maybe more importantly, is the true evidence, the irrefutable evidence, that those companies are mere appendages of the US intelligence services, that there is no difference anymore between surveillance by those companies and surveillance by the states, that all the data you disclose in those services is not only there to make you look so special or to get those privileged offers or those personal advertisement and the such. First of all, it has tremendous value in big dollars, and you don't see the color of it. But second, it means power, and power means control. We have a tremendous example in front of everybody's face, and I hope that Edward Snowden has many more documents to release in the next weeks and months to help make this point. We have a worldwide example of how technology can be turned against us and can be turned from a tool for freedom into a tool for control. Yet, this is only one example, and I want to try to make some generalization here. It is an example that resonates in the face of the world, but it's not the only one. What we see here is design of technology, of architecture, of online services, which whole purpose is to turn the other way around this very logic that technology has to be between our hands. Design is being used to take away from us that ability to understand technology, to get hold of our data, to master the infrastructure for communication. Indeed, I'm thinking of those giant aggregates of data that are the Google and the Facebook and the Apples of this world. Indeed, they are one massive example, because in this case, centralization is key. Centralization is here to make money out of our personal lives and to give more power to the people who will access to this aggregated data. So this centralization is one design pattern for technology that controls us. But there are others. If you look at those shiny devices that some still call phones, smartphones, well, they're not even smart and they're not even phones. First of all, they're not phones because they're computers. And computers are not phones. They are phones that have features that allow them to make phone calls. And it's called the baseband chip. And it's now inside the very chip of the computer. It's a computer within the computer. Second of all, it's not smart, because those computers are by design banning you from choosing what software you will install, banning you from choosing the source of the software you will install, banning you from understanding how this baseband chip is working. The very same chip that is at the core of every device we have in our pockets, that can access any functionality of the computer, any functionality. It means the microphone, it means the Wi-Fi, it means the storage, the contacts and the such. This chip is completely sealed as a black box in order to ensure that no one among us can understand what is happening. Well, this is another one of those design patterns. The closing down of the chips and the closing down of the software. The closing down not only of the server architecture, but of the terminal architecture. And you see the pattern here with the whole infrastructure we use every day being little by little, part by part, closed down and turned against us. You may be familiar with the DRM, the Digital Restriction Management. This is a very early stage of such implementation, of such technology. When companies invest shitloads of money and shitloads of human resource in order to build technology that will block you from doing what you want to do with your device, that will lock you out of the device you think you own, the device you paid for. Well, what I'm claiming here is that those design patterns for technology that controls individuals are one key component of what could become the totalitarian nightmare of the future of our societies. And we have something of tremendous importance to play here. For that, we need to understand the very same way that we can reflect about those design patterns for technology to control. We need to understand the design patterns for technology that makes us more free. Technology for freedom. Of course, you all know about free software, libre software, free as freedom software. Richard Stallman has been telling that for the last 30 years with a very impressive commitment, and yet another big up for Richard. Make some noise, please. Free software is software that make us more free because it gives us the ability at all time to understand what the machine is doing and to control the machine rather than being controlled by it. It is a key political core fundament of what free software is. It is about human being able to control the computer rather than the computer being able to control the human being. And this is one clear, essential design pattern. Another one is decentralized services. We have lots of examples in history where the concentration of power led to catastrophe. I don't need to reach for the Godwin point here, or the Dutch administration, the census of the people that got burned and the such. And you all have those examples in mind. Well, the internet was built with this objective of decentralization in mind. This is what made it work. This is what enabled this bottom-up innovation. This is what enabled Wikipedia, Napster, BitTorrent. And if it feels like we're losing it. Who here is not using Google or Facebook? Please raise. Yeah. Google and Facebook? Well, we're losing it. How is that possible? I'm not advocating that Friendica is better than Facebook, because you have 1 billion people on Facebook and roughly nobody uses Friendica. But it's what we call the network effect. The value of a network lies in the number of users. So until you don't go and deploy your own Friendica node, then we will give it up to Facebook. We should think about it, and we should think whether sharing photos and whatever you're eating for breakfast and making friends is more important than building the infrastructure for more free societies. And we have to think about it with all our guts, our minds, and wits, and the such. Another design pattern is indeed end-to-end encryption. Not the fake kind of encryption that you see in software such as Skype, because you're now familiar with the story of how Skype gave away its secrets to the NSA and had literally no choice than doing so according to US law. No, end-to-end encryption. Encryption where the user manages his own key and manages his encrypted relation with other users. So, libre software, decentralized services, end-to-end encryption. We hackers know those technology exists for so long. They're here for at least 15 years. And for those years, we've been frustrated, saying, why the general public doesn't catch up with it? Is my mom and my uncle, are they stupid? What's the problem? Well, I think those three technologies, those three design patterns for technology have in common that it requires an active participation from the user. It requires that user actively engage into mastering the technology, into appropriating the technology for him or herself. if you use end-to-end encryption without understanding how to manage keys, without a proper key hygiene, without changing keys regularly and taking care of your private keys and the such, it's almost no use of using it. So we are speaking here of patterns in technology that make us more free, but that require a little effort to be mastered. What I think is maybe the missing link between what we were ranting about for all those years about users not appropriating those technologies, is that in order to appropriate them, we need to realize, we need to understand the importance of technology that make us more free rather than technology that make us more controlled. And maybe the revelations about PRISM are one tremendous occasion to do so. Well, you may think, I'm not a programmer. What can I do about it? Well, first of all, if you're a programmer, you should be ashamed for not producing code that is libre, decentralized, and end-to-end encryption, because you may be putting people at risk. But if you're not a programmer, of course you can play a part. Of course you can help. First of all, you can use those technologies. It's no big deal. It's a few days of getting used to it. Ask your local geek. Go to your local hacker space. Document yourself. Go to forums, IRC channels. I mean, if my mom can use Debian, it means anyone can use it. I know that the habit is something very difficult to change. It's usually the most difficult thing to change in any computer environment. But maybe our free societies are at stake. So it's not only about programmers, and we all have a role to play by using those technologies, by promoting their use, by engaging with policymakers and explaining to them how crucial those design patterns are for the future of a society. We need industrial policies that will promote these design patterns in technology. We need public money to output public software, which is libre software, that can be used for public infrastructure, which is decentralized, which can be used to protect the communications of the public, which means end-to-end encryption. And yes, this is political, but political to the noble sense, to the Greek sense of the term, which means citizens who care about the life of their surrounding. And this is something we all have a role to play. We have major recent examples with SOPA, PIPA, and ACTA, where we won big times against the strongest industries of this world, against governments among the most resourceful of this planet, because we are all together, because we are the internets, because we are decentralized, because we are smart, because we have imagination, and because we are having fun. And this is all we have to do, all together, because, once again, it is our responsibility and it is our duty at all costs to get back control of technology before technology fully controls us. I thank you very much. I know there are questions. No, we need questions. I'm sorry, it was late 30 minutes. We can take 10 more minutes for questions. I'm sorry. We have time. Please. Well, and anyway, afterwards I'll be in some room by there so we can have further discussion. But yeah, please, I want questions. Interventions, whatever.
So the first question would be, you mentioned that hardware is getting more and more closed. But if you look at the Linux kernel, you will see that more and more drivers are appearing in the kernel, that AMD, Intel, and others are opening the specifications, and you can have you can buy a new laptop these days, install Debian on it, and it works. So can you comment on that?
Well, yeah, you remember those days where the PCs were beige? that was an example of technology that was made for us to control. You could open the metal thing that would cut your fingers and instead have access to those extension cards and choose the hardware you would buy and put it in and make sure that the driver you would buy would be controlled by a free Libre driver. This is not the case anymore today, and this is a big concern. Hardware is increasingly soldered on one single chip, system on a chip. Innovation, technology, jobs, growth, and so on. But I don't even know if today we have one Wi-Fi chip that is currently being sold that you can control with a free Libre driver in the Linux kernel. And this is a major problem. And indeed, I may not have mentioned it, but open hardware you can control is definitely part of it. Thank you for your contribution.
Okay, another question. Does your mom use GNOME 3?
I think she uses GNOME too, but I don't know what she does when I'm not here. So she's, I mean, that.
Okay.
Questions? I fought for them, please. That's one.
So a question about the chips and all of that. It is really how to go about enforcing the manufacturers, pretty much anyone in the business, to release the information to have other drivers. So going from Wi-Fi to BIOS to pretty much anything you can, well, use or think of these days, really.
Well, if I had a simple answer, I would have already implemented it and things would have changed. But I think that this question is political, therefore it is about putting pressure on the manufacturers. I think that states can put pressure on the manufacturers, that states buy for the key infrastructure, routers, computers, terminals that have those closed down chips is a major threat to their sovereignty. And a French parliamentary report about it, the Bocal report, mentions this. It's a report about cybersecurity and mentions the black box chips. So maybe some non-US governments, non-Chinese governments could pressure those companies to do so. Maybe we could, I don't know, crowdfund Russian hackers to make tiny slices with laser of those chips and reverse engineer them. Maybe we'll have to crack them open. I think this is a very important thing to do for hardware hackers. And once again, I agree, this is a major threat to our freedoms online and offline. Oh, we have one more question. Just one. A quick one. Very quick one. Please. Just one. The question is there any other method to design our own technology? Well, the Arduino is one example. Well, the problem is between an Arduino and a spy phone, you have lots of iterations. So when our Arduinos will be as powerful and nice and round-cornered as iPhones, then we'll get there. But I think that's one way to go. Also, you have a swarm of independent, associative, non-for-profit internet access provider. In France, they're the FDN Federation. There are about 15 of them in local regions and cities and things like this. It's one way of mutualizing resources for shared infrastructure to get away from corporate influence. But on the hardware, I think, is one of the major problems we have today. For the software, we have GNU Linux, we have Debian, we have FreeBSD, and the such. We know how to build an internet service provider from scratch, but still we don't know how to build one truly open computer, pocket computer. Thank you for your patience. Thank you. Thank you in the, yeah.